Hello everybody and welcome to the post-match review of the Maori All Blacks versus the British and Irish Lions. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and I'm afraid I've had a few technical issues tonight, and so it looks like the pen will not be able to join us from Glasgow. But I do have Rugby Numbers down from Wellington. How are you doing, sir?
Good, Paul. Thanks for having me on. Should we just get into it?
I think so.
All right, well, I guess the first thing I noticed watching the Maori All Blacks was I wasn't clear what they were trying to achieve with their defensive line. They were committing hardly any numbers to the breakdown at all, at either end of the field, and yet they didn't seem to be employing a rush defence either. They just seemed to be making their tackles and then standing and waiting for the next wave of Lions forwards. I was wondering what they were hoping to achieve with that.
Yeah, and I think also they perhaps weren't getting kicked to as much as they were expecting, which might have been also part of their plan, is to just soak up, keep the Lions at a certain space, and then receive the kick and attack back again. But the Lions didn't do that. They kept hold of the ball, especially in the second half, got over the game line, got the territory, had the pressure, and then converted that into points. And yeah, as you say, that didn't really fit with what the Maori All Blacks or their style of play would have helped with. So,
no, well, I agree with that. It's interesting to talk about the Maori All Blacks style of play. I mean, historically, of course, they've played a very open, running, sort of back-spaced kind of game, the sort of thing you'd expect to see in Super Rugby. Of course, it's made up predominantly of Super Rugby players, and they certainly weren't given the chance at all to play that. There's a similar approach from the Lions that we saw with the Crusaders, for example. Pretty much, I think, what we expected to see. Very strong, smothering, suffocating defence, and then fairly unimaginative but effective offence up the middle, going for penalties.
Yeah, and that was definitely the order of the day in the first half, where the Lions incremented their score in threes, and that's how they got the lead at half-time. And if Mackenzie hadn't missed a penalty in the first half, the Maori All Blacks would probably have been leading at half-time by a point. So it was within the score at that point. It was all very tight. And we should probably talk about that first try by the Maori All Blacks before we move on to the Lions. So the Maori All Blacks got it. I think it was Milner Scudder put the kick through. George North failed to handle it, and Nesson kicked it on and scored over scored a try. Had a bit of chat on Twitter at the time around that swan. Was that the Maori All Blacks making something from nothing because they hadn't had much territory and ball, or was that a Lions error?
I think it was definitely the latter, right? I mean, that's the sort of play we'd expect to see from the Maori All Blacks. It's certainly the sort of thing we'd expect to see from Milner Scudder. Interestingly enough, you know, the Maori All Blacks backs began that move, but it was finished off by a forward anyway. So we really didn't see anything close to what we were expecting from that back line. There was a lot of talk pre-game about James Lowe, Milner Scudder, Rieko Ioane, and you hardly heard their names mentioned during this match. They were effectively shut out. One comment I had was I was quite surprised to see Lowe at fullback and Milner Scudder on the wing. To my mind, Milner Scudder is a more natural fullback, and Lowe's been performing very well on the wing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I do. I'll just go back first thing. Yes, it was a Lions error, but it was a Lions error because the Maori All Blacks were trying something. They were putting ball through, whereas a lot of the Lions play was up to the line and have a tackle and they weren't really trying much. There was just lots of bashing against the game line. And that came, yes, it was a Lions error, but it was a Lions error from something that's been at least attempted, even if not executed very well at the end of the day, really. But yes, if we have a quick chat about the Maori All Blacks backline, we've got Damien Mackenzie in there at number 10, who most people will have seen him mainly playing at 15 for the Chiefs. Yeah. But when he plays in Mitre 10 rugby or the NPC, provincial, whatever you want to call it, he plays a 10. Milner Scudder, again, on the right wing. And when you watch him for the Canes, he's either a right wing or a fullback, but has been historically a bit more of a fullback. James Lowe, whenever you see him at Chiefs, he's always on the wing. So yes, you're right. And then also Rieko Ioane, again, is he a winger or is he an outside centre? He's been played in both positions this year. He's started outside centre, he's moved out wide. And I think this is going to be, it's the All Blacks, I think, letting the Maori All Blacks know this is where our future lies.
Sure.
And I think our future lies, or the All Blacks' future, rather than our future, I'm here in line wearing a line shirt. But I think the All Blacks' future lies with Damon McKenzie at 10, Rico on wing, Milner Scudder on the other, and with Geordie Barrett at fullback. Now, Geordie Barrett's otherwise disposed, or I don't actually know if he actually qualifies for the Maori All Blacks, but clearly he wasn't playing tonight. And so, Milner Scudder, sorry mate, you're or telling the Maori All Black coaches, Milner Scudder for us is a winger. We need to see Damon McKenzie more at 10. You've got to fit James Lowe in somewhere, so hey, he goes in at fullback.
Yeah, I suppose you could make the point too that Milner Scudder hasn't had an enormous amount of game time this season, and what he has played has been on the wing. So if you're going to bring him back and throw him into the Maori All Blacks, you may as well at least play him in a position where he's had some game time already.
Yeah, there is that as well, but so you're quite right that I think James Lowe isn't fullback. I don't think I've ever seen him play fullback for the Chiefs. I don't remember him seeing him there. I always see him on the left wing, which is where Rico was on the left wing. I don't see James Lowe as a right winger either. He's pretty much always on that left wing. But so yeah, I think it's fitting into what the All Blacks want long term. Was that?
Sure. So one other thing I was very evident right from the start of the match and the whole way through was the pace of the match felt a lot slower than perhaps I was expecting. It definitely felt like the Lions were in complete control of the pace of the game, were playing it at the speed they wanted to, weren't getting sucked into Super Rugby as it was suggested happened last time. Do you think that's going to be successful against the All Blacks, or are the All Blacks going to be able to push the tempo?
That's going to be interesting because I was at Eden Park last night where first up we had Tonga versus Wales, which was a very slow game. And it bored a lot of people around me. They were just like, why did we come early? Or why did we come on time? It was a really stodgy game. Scrums took absolutely ages. It felt like every scrum was a whole music break. It was like, sorry guys, we can't start the scrum till the song's finished. And then we followed that up with the All Blacks versus Samoa, and it was like stuff was happening all the time. It was just go, 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 and it was very chalk and cheese pace-wise. Tonight was somewhere in between. It wasn't as slow as the Wales versus Tonga game by any stretch, but it wasn't up to an All Blacks one. And yeah, I'm not sure that the All Blacks will be able to push the pace that much. This felt like a very All Blacks. I tweeted it again. This felt like a All Blacks game in some ways from the All Blacks. They were happy to bend and not great defensively. And when it ended up being in their 22, they drew a penalty, which is very much an All Black style. Yes, you can have threes, but you're never having fives or sevens. And so, from that point of view, it felt All Black like. And maybe the pace was down a bit, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think it'll probably be a bit faster than this, but I don't think it'll be as fast as the All Blacks want it to be.
Absolutely. So another thing that's probably going to be a talking point out of this match was Tawera Kurbalo's influence on the game. He got himself carded after, they'd been warned by the referee, and you saw Tana Umanga at half-time make the point that the discipline was what was killing them, and then that must have been an absolute coach killer, that no-arms tackle. So he went off, the Lions scored 2 tries, and that was the only time in the match they scored any tries. Do you think both of those can be attributed to playing against 14 men, or do you think they just finally got it together about that point in the match?
Both tries came off the back of scrums, didn't they, as well?
Yeah.
So one was so clearly when you have a set piece like that, the numbers matter because there's going to be a gap somewhere. You can't cover it up. So I think yes, you're right. I think the numbers definitely pay the price for that. And if we look at the actual discipline, the stats I've got, we now gave up 15 penalties to the Lions 4. And if we think about back to Chicago, which is obviously a big game that everyone in Europe's talking about, again, that was something that happened again there, was that Ireland gave up a very small amount of penalties, which meant that they never conceded territory. And I think that's what the Lions are also aiming for here, is if we don't give penalties away and we have a fast line speed, we're going to control the territory, because you can't carelessly just give away that territory. And so that's, I think we saw there again a bit of looking back at some trying to copy Chicago into the Test team. Along that was that discipline is going to be a big thing for the Lions. It was a coach killer, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's not a forward that's gone off on a yellow card, and then you see the scrum being dominant. So was it all down to the yellow card? Probably not, but it definitely was a contributing factor.
Yeah, I think just probably in Kurbalo's defence, he pulled off a couple of arguably try-saving tackles in the match as well. In the first half, about a quarter of an hour in, and again early on in the second half. So he might have come out neutral overall. Just got a comment here from Dan the Man. He says, a lot of the Maori players were showing up. Mackenzie, Lowe and the entire forward pack, bar Ioane, just shows how hard it is to bring together a scratch side in a few days, as the Lions have found out.
There's definitely an element of that, and I think Mackenzie is someone who thrives on a bit of space and finding a gap and fighting mismatch. And maybe, I don't know, perhaps I'm speculating too much here, but this was quite. I remember listening to Brian Moore once saying the difference he felt between club rugby and international rugby was in international rugby, all you had to do was worry about your role, and at club level, if you're an international player, you're doing your role and you're making up for the people. Now, is that step up where everybody is competent and there isn't a mismatch going to be the thing that means that Mackenzie's a fantastic Super Rugby player, but he's not a great international player, because he's not going to find those mismatches, he's not going to have as much space, and he's not going to get those gaps that he gets when he's playing at Super Rugby. Time will tell, I guess. But I think that was definitely a learning curve for him tonight, was the intensity of an international game versus a Super Rugby game. Someone's cleaning the table at the moment, shaking it all over the place, sorry. And I think that's a big learning curve for him. Kirbalu, he did. That yellow card's fully unpolished copy, but he's going overseas anyway at the end of the season, so I don't think he was ever going to be in the All Blacks frame, in all honesty.
Just a couple of other comments that have popped up. Jason and Connor have both made comments about a good, solid game by the Lions. Do you think that's the takeaway short summary?
It was a good, solid game, wasn't it? And is that enough? Is that really what we're looking for? So I'm just trying to think from a Lions point of view, if we take away from we're both obviously based in New Zealand, so we know the Maori All Black players very better. We've had a look at the Lions side. I think North had a poor game. Obviously, he had that mishandle that led to the try, but also he didn't do much else apart from that. And I've heard a lot of talk about the fact that if you're going to play a box kicking, get my tongue around this, a box kicking, kick chase game, that's not what George North does. He's a big guy that you want to get involved, running into sort of the gaps or shoulders, weak shoulders. That's what his game is. So, is he really a square peg for a round hole in the system?
Absolutely, and I think there's definitely been some comments about that. Who would your alternative be then? If the Lions are going to persist with this kick chase tactic, who would you put in instead of North against the All Blacks?
It's difficult because all the other people we talk about have had poor games. Jack Now was caught out defensively. Now, whether that was the system, whether that was him, it felt like when he first came to the England side, again, he used to get caught out defensively. And whether is it confidence and knowledge of the system? Seymour's not had a great game on the wing, and Liam Williams also picked up that yellow card against the Blues. So the contenders all have had poor games as well. Even though that game plan suits a Jack Now or a Seymour much better than it does a North. So it's difficult to tell who you could bring in. The only option really is Elliot Daly, who came off the bench. I think had a pretty good game. Showed some good footwork in heavy traffic to get himself out of trouble. So perhaps Elliot Daly is probably the guy most likely. But I don't think Gatland will move away from North. He just knows him too well.
So that raises another question then. If you're the coaching staff, you want to persist with this tactic, even if your players aren't able to execute it as well as you would hope. But you're up against Julian Savia, who is a bit average under the high ball. So it seems like a worthwhile tactic to pursue. You just got to get your wing stepping up and actually being able to contest them, right?
Yeah, and also George North is of his size, he can stop the bus, whereas all the other options we're talking about there are all a bit smaller. Actually, I'm not sure about how big Seymour is, but Jack Nowell and Elliot Daly both definitely would give up weight to Julian Severe. So George North is a good immovable object for that irresistible force of Julian Severe coming down. So in that kind of sense, it's a good matchup. Yeah, they're both not great under the high ball. So yeah, you're giving up something, but you're getting something else. I thought, now someone I've been critical of is Jonathan Davis. Prior to his selection, I don't think he should be selected. And then since he's been selected, his form's been great. And again, I thought he had a good game tonight, made some good breaks, but perhaps should have been looking for the pass. And that's always been my criticism of Davis. I just don't think he can pass. So I think, yeah, defensively fine. He can make that break. But as a defence, do you go, once he's made the break, you know what, let's just get him. We don't have to worry about the support players because he's not going to offload it. He's not going to pass it anyway. So I think it's a bit one-dimensional in that kind of sense. But I still think he had a good game.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Another thing that caught my attention was obviously Warren Gatland copped a little bit of flack earlier for suggesting that the Lions might have to try something out of the box, perhaps an offload. And I noticed that they did try a few offloads and most of them went nowhere. I saw a lot of them sort of thrown that either just went to no one or were intercepted or just were knocked on. Do you think it's worth persisting with that style of attack, or should they just stick with what they're good at?
I think if you're coming down, you've got 4 weeks or 3 weeks before the first test, you've got to stick with what you're good at. There's no point trying to teach an old dog new tricks in that kind of time frame. But in TO, you've got someone who can offload. He might not be able to pass, but he can offload. So it's then a matter of, can you get the guys to run the lines off him to be ready to accept those? And that's the big thing.
Because I think that's certainly what I was noticing. The offloads themselves were fine. There was just no one there to receive them. And it just looked like no one was really running the right type of supporting line to receive them. And you're right. That's not something that can just be drummed up in the short period of time they have before they meet the All Blacks.
No, but the other thing is, if you're not going to make an offload, can you break the All Blacks' fit defence down with quick rucks, or are you even going to get quick rucks? In which case, if you don't think that's going to happen, then you've got to try it anyway, because you're going to have to break the line, get the and score some tries against the All Blacks. Tonight they got away with. They managed to suffocate the Maori All Blacks into not scoring. I'm not sure that the All Blacks, when they'll have a better platform off the forwards, whether that's possible.
Sure. I just want to jump in there with a comment from Bebo. It says, Northern Hemisphere Rugby has picked up their game. How good was Scotland as well? This Lions team is good at shutting down the defence and forcing penalties. Defence coaches are implementing well. Yeah,
very true. And it's going to sound a bit trite. Defence is easy to implement. It's about effort. It's about getting up and putting the tackles and that kind of thing. Attack's much harder to implement. If you look at Eddie Jones with England, for example, whilst he went on a big winning run, one of the criticisms about them was, well, they're defending really hard and just basically scoring points off people's errors. Well, yes, because it's easy to put, because it takes a long time to put a good attack together. It takes a relatively short time to put a good defence together. And that's what we're going to see from the Lions, is a good defence and some sort of makeshift attack. There's just no time to build a proper attack around, really. You've got some. We're going to have a quick look at some the stats. I think some things that will tell us kind of how this game kind of went. Obviously, we had the 15 penalties to 4 that Maori gave up compared to the Lions. I thought another one that was kind of interesting was the number of scrums. The Maori had 3 scrum put-ins, whereas the Lions had 12 scrum put-ins, and which is 12 knock-ons by a New Zealand side is a lot. That was a bit surprising for me that Society would do that. And I guess the last one I put to which comes along with possession and territory, is that the Maori made 154 tackles to the Lions 67. So nearly 3 times as many tackles, which gives you an idea as to where the game was going and why the Maori got worn down, I guess, towards the end there. And we didn't really see them breaking through the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, there were some quite startling possession and territory stats called out at various points through the match as well. I think it ended up being about 70% possession, 70% territory in favour of the Lions. Is there any concern there that turned into mostly penalties rather than tries, or does it not matter as long as they're scoring the points?
When it comes to test matches, it won't matter. As long as you win the game, who cares? The only question is, will 3 points win a game against the All Blacks? And is the defence good enough to contain that All Black side? And until we have that first test, we're not really going to know. Clearly, the All Blacks made a big statement yesterday, scoring 78 points against Samoa, with a disallowed try right on the death, which would have taken them over a point a minute. Teams don't put that many points on these island sides nowadays so much. And we talked a lot in the last Rugby World Cup about the gap between Tier 2 and Tier 1 sides closing. So clearly the All Blacks were making a statement last night that, look, you're going to have to score points against us because we're going to score them. It wasn't about the defence, it was about the attack last night and saying, look how many points we can score. I think have they got into the psyche of the Lions, saying, look, we're going to start scoring some more points? I don't know. We'll see whether the Lions can stick their guns off. We're going to restrict the All Blacks to 1-2 tries, but we'll see if that happens.
Sure. I just wanted to call out another couple of comments that have come in. Just a simple comment here by One Dooms. Mackenzie got hammered by Teo. Agree with that?
Yes, he did, and I think that I think we had a sort of talk about it earlier. I think Mackenzie wasn't given the space he's used to. Now, running from fullback, you get a bit more, but also running against super good teams, you get a lot more. And so, yeah, he was looking for the gap. He was looking for the mismatch. The Lions kick chase. That's to be one of the characteristics of this game and against the Crusaders. Because the Lions kick chase has been good. They've come up in a line and it's been at pace. So, yeah, he got hit. He got nailed a couple of times. He's used to that. He quite often gets nailed, but he quite often also finds a gap. And those gaps just weren't there tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's been observed before that Mackenzie's a lot tougher than his size would suggest, right? I think it was the previous match he played in, he got smashed and just immediately bounced back up again and carried on as if nothing had happened. And so I don't think it's going to worry him too much. He's certainly not scared of taking contact for sure.
He's not. I think I saw him holding his shoulder against after one of them tonight, so maybe he has taken a harder hit than he's used to. But he's going to continue playing the way he does. He's had an average game tonight. It wasn't a bad game. I mean, we weren't seeing him make basic errors. In all his basic skills were still there. He just didn't get the opportunities that he would normally get.
Sure, I'm just mentioning shoulders. Obviously, Proctor went down in the second half with what looked like a pretty nasty injury. If you'd been following the match on Twitter, someone had a nice screen grab of a forearm that was bent in the wrong direction, so I suspect he's going to be out for quite a while. I'd actually been thinking that Proctor had been looking really solid for most of the match. He'd made a good tackle and textbook turnover at one point early in the first half, which really stood out because the Maori All Blacks weren't really contesting the rucks at all, so any kind of turnover was unusual, I thought. That's really disappointing for him. Obviously, he's been out for a while with concussion, and Vince Aso has basically taken his spot in the Hurricanes, so it's going to be a real shame for him probably to sit out the rest of or at least some more of the Super Rugby season. But on the flip side of that, the Lions will be pretty happy to get through that match without any major injuries.
Yeah, I think so. And they've been averaging about a concussion a game so far. So to get a concussion is a big step forward. We kind of talk about no turnovers, but according to the stats, the Maori All Blacks gave up 15 turnovers and the Lions gave up 12. And maybe that was more down to handling errors than pilfering. But there was plenty of turnovers in that game, especially I think more so in the first half than the second half. I mean, you're right. It's a real shame for Proctor. You say he's just come back from injury. This starts to look good, especially when his place is gone. Someone's performing so well in his place. It's all a bit harsh.
Another comment that's just come in here, simply that Davies had a great game. Would you go so far as to say he had a great game?
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say a great game. He had a good game. I wouldn't call it a great game. Again, he made some really good breaks, but again, I still have a question mark on his passing. I saw one comment saying that even though North's out of form, if Davis had got the pass away, North had a walk in. So no, he had a very good game, but I wouldn't call it great. But I do think that the Teo Davis partnership is what we're going to see in the Test match for certain there. And I don't think anyone really played. The only person I would say that played themselves out of the Test match position or put a question mark around the Test match position really was George North. I think pretty much everyone else stood up, played well, and didn't do anything but with question mark them starting next weekend. There are a couple of players obviously around that. So Farrell, Alwyn Jones, the two that spring to mind, who could slot back in, and maybe also whether Warburton and O'Brien switch. But apart from that, I don't think anyone did themselves any damage performance-wise.
Yeah, just on that Test match selections, there's another comment here. Says, how good was Conor Murray? Do you think Sean O'Brien will push Sam Warburton onto the bench for the Test match? Such a hard starting side to pick when your subs are as good as the starting lineup. Yeah,
when a team on paper, and everyone on paper is first choice pretty much for their national side. And there's a couple there, like Jamie George and Carl Sinclair, who start on the bench for England. But on the whole, these are all first choice players. They're all quality players. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's interesting. I until tonight was thinking that CJ Sander was the bench option. But maybe CJ Sander's going to miss out the whole match day 23 entirely, which, as I had him down as the first choice 6, is a big drop for him. So no, I think O'Brien will start. I don't think George North's had the game time more than anything else, and so I don't think he'll. I think we'll probably start with Warburton on the bench for the first test, but the second and third he might come back. He might come on the bench, might come off the bench to play and start the games.
Sure. Just one more comment that's probably worth addressing here from a viewer with a completely unintelligible username. Simply that Messam looked back towards his best, and I would have to agree with that. He was very aggressive in the opening 15 or 20 minutes. I saw him holding up a lot of tackles and attempting to create mauls, attempting to strip the ball a couple of times. He wasn't particularly successful, but he was back to the old fighty Liam that we're used to seeing on the field, I think.
I think it was a mixed game. I remember knocking the ball on at least twice as well. So I do think that whilst physically in the tight, he might have had a good game, or in the contact areas. I don't think his ball handling was there that I would expect to see from him. I think he had a bit of a mixed game.
Yeah, that's true. Although he did score their only try as well.
He did as well. That's true. He did pick up a try. So pluses and minuses. Now I think we're running up to our half hour, so we should probably. Any last thoughts or last comments on there?
Well, I think as we said earlier, just really to summarise, the Lions, we got exactly what we expected. I think nothing more and nothing less. I would say. I think they'll certainly be happy to escape without injuries. There was a lot of talk before the match that the Maori All Blacks were going to be extremely aggressive, hard hitting and all the rest of it. But I don't think we really saw that in particular. I think there were a couple of Maori All Blacks who did themselves no favours with their performance tonight. And there's just one comment here which I would agree with too. The Lions' handling was an improvement from Tuesday, but still a few mistakes, possibly down to the greasy surface. So I think you can. I think the Lions will be happy just to tick that one off and move on.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let's get the win. Got a couple of tries, which is good. And they. Sorry, just handing glasses across to the boys. As I say, they came out without any injuries. I hear it was raining for the England New Zealand ladies game beforehand, so it was probably a bit greasy. I couldn't really tell off the screen, how well it was. But yeah, I think you're right. That's right. But definitely David McKenzie didn't do himself any favours, and he's the big name there that might be heading towards the All Blacks. But yeah, so there's been no changes to the All Black squad, and but the Lions did what they wanted to do. So I think it's time for you to let people know where they can get hold of you.
All right. Yeah. Well, first of all, just let me thank you again for having me on. You can catch me at rugbynumbers.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Rugby Numbers. I cover mostly Super Rugby, but stick around because next year I'm looking to expand into international as well. Some good statistical modelling, analysis, match predictions, a few other bits and pieces. And also you've got to check out our host here, DrivingMaul.
Well, I'm not sure who's the host, but it's been tonight. You've been some fantastic hosting. Thank you very much. So yes, catch me at DrivingMaul on Twitter. Rugby Numbers does predictions for all the Super Rugby rounds and statistically, so you can see percentage as to who will win and who will be a draw. It's very close. Last year he beat me by 1 point, one round on our prediction competition. So they are good predictions. And I say, do check out his Twitter feed and website. So yes, I'm at DrivingMaul on Twitter. Do subscribe to my channel. I'll be back here. I'm going to the Chiefs game, so I'll be broadcasting live from there on Twitter. But I will be back doing another one of these post-game reviews for the Hurricanes game. So catch me for that. Thank you very much for joining us all, and enjoy your rugby.